Hi everyone, welcome back to The Cloudy Desk. I'm Claudia, and today I'm going to be talking about my sort of 2024 ink fountain pen plan. Now this isn't a plan for purchasing or anything like that. This is really just like my plan for exploring some of the samples and inks and things like that I already have. Because I have so many, and I just did inkvent, so I've got quite a few full box here of samples and things that I want to play with and test out in the upcoming year. And my sort of really big goal here is I want to get a sense of what things I like, what colors I am drawn to using, what pens I enjoy using to help me really figure out what I want to buy. Do I want to buy bottles of things? Do I not? What types of colors am I using? What types of properties am I really drawn to? And then also in thinking about pens, sort of what pens am I using for what use, essentially. But also trying not to overwhelm myself by having so many pens inked up. Because I used to be able to have each of my pens inked up, and I could, over the course of the month, write most of them dry. But now that I've expanded my collection a bit, that's not really feasible anymore. I had planned on doing a fountain pen collection video, sort of like where my collection is at the start of 2024. I think that might still be happening at some point, but I just did a really big pen cleaning, and a lot of them are sort of disassembled and need to like dry for a little bit. So maybe that'll come soon. Yeah. So before we get going, this is my traveler's notebook that I use. This is like my home cover. So I have one that I carry with me, and this one mostly lives at home, and it's things that I use at home. And this is one that was customized by Kuchen. You can see I got them embossed here. I also got an embossing and a pen loop, and then I did the secretary pouches, or secretary pockets on each side. And in the back, I have my ink journal tucked in. So I'll just move that out of the way. I showed this in a previous video when I was organizing my ink samples, but this is a take a note, undated monthly insert. It's part of their, I think, the record line. But I have my ink bottles here, so this is everything I own a bottle of. I have my inkvent swatches. I do have a couple days that I still need to do because I got tired at the end of the month. It is January 31st. It is December 31st right now, and I still haven't done these last three, but maybe I'll do it after this. And then I have my ink swatches. These are both samples as well as bottles that I own by color. So I have greens, yellows, browns, blues, blacks, grays, reds, and purples. But like I pointed out in that other video, there's still so much more of this notebook that I'm not using. I was trying to figure out sort of what would be a good use for this. And I think because I still have a couple of these like monthly spreads, I'm going to skip all of those because the back half of the notebook is just grid paper, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on using in this upcoming experiment. I do think I originally wasn't planning on adding the inkvent swatches to the color pages, but I think I do need to. That way, if I'm like wanting to pick a green ink, I actually do have all my greens together. So I think when I add these last couple, I'm also gonna file these in these sort of larger color family sections as well. Actually, before I get into this, let me just get a clip. 1 second. Okay, instead of a clip, I have my small, what's it called? Clipboard that I'm using, because I have decided on a plan for my ink usage in 2024. And before I get into this, I just want to say I do reserve the right to change my mind, to abandon this entirely, to change the rules, whatever. I don't want this to be a burden. This is just to help provide some constraints, so that way I'm not getting as overwhelmed when thinking about working my way through my ink stash. Additionally, while this is the middle of the notebook, there are a few of these grid pages right before the middle, and I'm going to use these 2 pages to track any ink samples that I use up, any that I get rid of, either by giving them away or throwing them out, whatever, but I want to keep track of like what I've used this year, because I think those are sometimes like little victories that don't always get counted, and I think that sort of, if I'm trying to use more of my stuff up, is a big part of that process, actually. And before I clip it, I just will go over sort of what I've set up for myself here. So I've been trying to think sort of how many pens do I need to have inked up any given month? What makes the most sense for me? What will I actually use? And so that's what this section up here at the top is. And I wrote this just on a separate sheet of paper when I was brainstorming, and I've taped it in here with some washi. So this is my pen needs. So what do I think I will actually use on a month-to-month basis? And there might be some exceptions, some particular months where I want something else or to change it, but I think this is going to be my guideline of what I have inked up every month. And if you add it up, it does come out to about 7 pens, which I actually think works for me, because in my head, my goal was 5, but a couple of these are for very specific uses, and I actually think 7 is a very reasonable number. And I don't anticipate to use these up every month. There might be some carryover, but this is sort of like a snapshot of what I want to have at any given point. So number 1 is a pen for my 5-year journal. Actually, let me grab that. Yeah, so number 1 is a pen for my 5-year journal because the cover that I am using for it has a pen loop, and since this is going to live next to my bed, and I don't usually keep my pen case by my bed, I just want to have a pen with it. That way there's no barriers for me to use it every night. So that way there's just something that's living here. I can just pick it up and write my little entry in whenever. So number 1, I want a dedicated pen to live in here. Now, it might be that the pen that's here now is the pen I use all year, in which case, great, but it could also swap out at any given point. But 1 pen to live in here. Number 2, I want 2 pens for drawing, and those pens will have to have document ink. So this is my sort of art case, and I like to have a couple of fountain pens inked up, although one of them has sort of been living. I got a little pen loop that I attached to a craft folder, so I sometimes have one of these drawing pens here. That way, if I was just drawing at a cafe, I had it attached here. But in this case, theoretically, I'd like to have 2 fountain pens. Right now, it's these 2, and I'll talk about them in a second. I guess technically I do have 3. I guess this is technically a fountain pen. However, it is a brush pen, even though it does use a converter and I fill it using fountain pen ink. I am not counting it towards my total. It is sort of a very specific use case. But I like to have 2 pens with different colors, but that are sort of document inks, because I like to do watercolor and I want to be able to watercolor on top of these without having to worry. So, to recap so far, 1 for my 5-year Techo, 2 for my drawing case. After that, I like to have 2 everyday writers for my blue case. And so this is my everyday carry pen case. Right now I have 3 pens inked up in it. However, I might be swapping one of these 3, not these 3 specifically, but one of these slots I might start to have reserved for a ballpoint pen or something like that, just so I have something if I need that I can use on any paper, or just so I have another option. So I'd have 2 pens that I would carry with me every day, and then a third sort of more general purpose pen. So I want to have 2 fountain pens in here. I don't know why I've kept this one out. And then finally, 2 pens that I keep at home for letter writing and other types of journaling. And I sort of imagine that these 4 can be swapped out over the course of the month, but this also gives me some freedom of if there's a pen that I don't like to carry around, but I want to have it inked up, it can be one of those home pens for me. Like, for example, this pen that I just got from Pens by Casey in Australia. It is a beautiful wooden pen. However, it doesn't fit in this case. So maybe I could carry it with me. I have made a sleeve for it so I could take it outside of this case, but I know that that'll make it a little inconvenient for me to carry around. And this way, if this was one of my like take with me pens and then there was an empty slot here, I know myself, I'd be constantly paranoid that I had lost a pen. So this might be more of a home pen or only being taken out on very specific uses. So I think it would fall into that last category. So those are the uses I see myself using pens for each month-ish, roughly month-ish. And then when I was thinking about that, just thinking then again about, well, what types of inks do I want for these pens? I would like one of my let's try that again. I would like one of my letter writing pens to have a shimmer ink. That way, I don't think I'll be using shimmer inks like in my planner or things like that, maybe in my journal, but I think it'd be fun to write letters with shimmer, and that way I got so many shimmer inks in Inkvent, that way I can use through some of them more regularly. So if I always have one pen inked up with a shimmer ink, I think that'll work, especially since I have so many other pens that if for whatever reason I don't want to use a shimmer pen for a particular use, I'll have many others that I could switch to. One of my drawing pens will have black ink. Right now the black ink that I've been using, and this has been for years, is Platinum Carbon Black. So one has to have that, but then the other could have a different color. So that's sort of a side thing. I haven't done it yet, but I would like to purchase more document inks in different shades so I can experiment and see what colors I actually like drawing with. I can just show you. I've been keeping a nature journal where I just draw things that I see, and lately I've been using, let me bring it a little closer, some brown pens. I've been using the sepia ink for this, and it's been really fun to do. This one's black, but like you can see here, I really like the effect of using colors other than black. So, but I do want to explore that a little more. I'm not like totally in love with this one ink that I'm using, so I want to look into some grays, maybe some greens or other types of colors. I have a list of things that I'm looking at. So one of my drawing pens will have black, but that gives me space to experiment with one in another color. And then one of these 2 everyday pens will have green or brown ink. Green and brown are my 2 probably favorite colors of ink. And I know when I'm using my planner and stuff, they're just the colors I always naturally gravitate to. I don't need, like, if I have 2 everyday pens, one doesn't always have to be green and one doesn't always have to be brown. Just as long as one of them is one of those 2 colors, I think I'll be happy, because then I'll have like a pen I can consistently lean on that I know is one of those colors that brings me a lot of joy. And then one pen from any of these categories, although realistically it's probably either the everyday writer, the home letter writing, or the 5-year. I don't have any document inks in there. One of these pens will be an ink drawn from a lot. So these are and I can just open it up. This is the lots that I have written up. I essentially yesterday went through my ink samples, and I had made a list of inks that I knew I really wanted to try this year that I thought maybe I wouldn't necessarily get around to on my own or would forget about. And in that, when I made that list, it just very naturally was 12 inks. I wasn't trying to hit that number. 6 of them were from inkvent, and the other 6 were other samples that I just had for whatever reason. So I'm going to try every month drawing an ink from this little container and using that ink. Now, like I said, this isn't a monthly, it's not like every month at the start of the month I'm going to be re-inking all my pens. The only thing I'm committing to is every month drawing an ink from here and deciding a pen to ink up with it, and then that may affect if I rotate some of the other pens. Just because that's not currently how I use my pens. I don't have like a January inked list and then a February. I know a lot of folks do that. I think that's really cool, but I just don't think of that in that way, and that kind of work of uninking and re-inking all my pens at once seems exhausting. But every month I'll be picking one of these and making sure I introduce it into the lineup in some way. And right now, as I film this, it is the last day of December, so I'm going to be setting up the things that I do think I will be exploring in the start of the year. Now, like I said, some of my pens already inked, so those are going to be naturally inserted into the lineup. However, I do have another limitation in that in a couple weeks I'm going to the Philly Pen Show, and I have a couple pens that I own that I'm going to get ground. So those pens are currently cleaned and are out of the consideration for this month unless I ink it up after the show, which is a possibility just because I don't want to ink them, unink them, and then re-ink them again in like a 2-week span. So just to show you what things I do have inked, and I'll do like a writing sample after, but I have this Juan Pine pen, and just like look how gorgeous. I love here on the cap you can see all those rings. There's just some really beautiful texture to it. This pen is currently inked up. In my case, this one is actually going to be getting a grind, so this one will be getting cleaned out, so we're going to pretend like it doesn't exist for the purposes right now. But I have these 2 inked up. And of my fountain pens for art, I have these 2 inked up. The way that I'm currently thinking of these, and it may rotate depending on what ink I draw, is that these are my 2 everyday carry pens that are going to be coming with me for the next month or so. Do believe, yes, this one has a brown in it, so I do satisfy this requirement, and this one has like an almost brown. These are my 2 art pens. I do need one of those pen trays. And this one has platinum carbon black. This one doesn't, so I have that requirement settled. Oh, almost forgot. In my 5-year, I started the notebook tomorrow, but I already have a pen in it. This was a Christmas present pen, and again, in my upcoming pen collection video, I'll tell more stories about all of these. I have this one inked up, and that is for my 5-year TED show. And then this, because it is too big to really carry around every single day, is currently a letter writing pen. I don't currently have a shimmer ink, so I'm kind of hoping I pull a shimmer ink from here, otherwise I might have to rethink some of these pens. Well, let's see what I get, because maybe it'll do that for me. So I have 12 things written down. Again, 6 were from inkvent and 6 were just other ones I had. So let's go with this. Close it up. And this is just it was a face mask that I had from Lush that I took the stickers off of, and it actually is going to work very nicely. Since it's the Year of the Dragon, I put a dragon sticker as well as a little ink bottle sticker. So let's see what ink we've selected. We have pulled Raspberry Rose. Now this isn't a shimmer ink, but let me just grab it 1 second and then have a think. Ta-da! Found it. It's a Raspberry Rose. It actually is an inkvent ink, but from a previous year. So this was a sample that I got from Simone from her channel. Believe is just a standard red. I'm actually very excited about using it though. So I do need to decide what pen to put that in, and again, because I'm a little constrained because of both pen cleaning and my upcoming nib grind situation, that does limit what pens I have. So actually, I'm going to use one of the pens I just cleaned because it looks pretty dry. So I'm going to be using my Traveler's Brass pen for this because I usually used this as a drawing pen, but I already have 2 drawing pens for this month. So because I usually use it by refilling a cartridge, let me just get my ink syringe. Ink syringe acquired, as well as a towel, just in case. So I'm not going to fill it up directly over the notebook because that's just asking for problems. Now, since this is an experiment, I don't necessarily know what I think of this pen. I'm not going to fill it up necessarily the whole way. So let's just take a little. Yeah, that's like a half fill. That sounds good to me. I'll just close this up before any more accidents happen. We'll put that there. Okay. That does seem to be on. And then I'm just going to let this sit so we can get it moving before I write with that one, since it will take a second to get to the nib. I do want it to rest nib down, so I'm going to do that off camera. I promise you though, it's here. And so the way I see myself using this is if I decide to unink or re-ink any pens over the course of the month, this is just going to be sort of like a rolling tally instead of a snapshot. So I'll just add it to the sort of bottom of the list and keep going. But let me first write the month. So this is my January list, but this is not going to be the one I list first. So we are going to start with, this is my special Leonard Bernstein pen that I got for Christmas. It is in a fine nib. So let's write Mont Blanc. Fine, I only have one Mont Blanc, so I don't need to specify which one it is. And I have it inked up with, let's see, I'll put it here. Diamine Brandy Snap. And I do like when folks do this, and it does give me a good sense of wetness, so let's just fill in. This is a very wet writer, especially for a fine, but it is a Western fine, so very different from the Japanese pens. And so again, this is my 5-year Techo pen, but I'm not necessarily writing that in the list because, like I said before, I might rotate if you just want to see that. And then I've just been calling this my Huan Pine pen. It has a Mr. Cypress medium nib on it, which is really juicy. and fun to write with. So this has been one of my letter writing pens. And I have in it Oto Kokeiro, which again is the Kyono Oto inks they tend to be a bit drier. And you can see in this pen that is not a concern. Apologies, I know this light is not the best, but we are dealing with winter lack of sunlight, so I'm trying to get a setup that works. But let me just adjust the lighting 1 second. I feel like it's changed over the course of recording. Don't know if that's any better, but let's see. So again, this is one of my letter writing pens. And what's fun is since this does take like a Yovo number 6 nib at the Philly Pen Show, I'm going to get a couple of those ground so that I can try out some different types of nibs on this pen. Because right now it's my only pen that takes that nib size. This is one of the Yoseka Pro Gear pens. This is an Origin I bought off of Instagram. Nope. Oh yeah, the virtual pen show. I really love this pen, and ever since I've gotten it, I've kept it inked up. So this is Sailor X Yoseka Origin pen in fine, and I currently have Diamine Fireside Snug in it. And I'm not really listing these in any particular order. I guess if I had thought about it, I could have done colors, but oh well. As to be expected, this finer nib is not as wet as some of the other nibs. That is fine. I've been really enjoying that color. And then, like I said before, one of my all-time favorite pens, although that Pro Gear is giving it a bit of a run for its money, but this I do still really love. My Sailor Dragon Palace in medium fine. This is really the month of Diamine, huh? Diamine Walnut. And this is my everyday carry in brown. I'm just gonna actually move some of these for now. I sewed a faux rickshaw case the other day, and for now we're just gonna tuck these in there so that way they're safe and out of the way. So like I said, this was Diamine Walnut. Let's do my little box. A little wetter than the fine, but still definitely not as wet as the others. What's nice about this case is that I can use the grooves to store more pens. And then we have my 2 document inks. So first I have my TWSBI Mini Rose Gold. TWSBI, and I do have 2 TWSBI Minis, so I do want to specify. And this is in extra fine, and it has the Atramentis Sepia. And I've been liking this color, but like as a brown, it's not one that I have like fallen absolutely in love with. I don't know, that's why I'm sort of still looking for some document inks that I really enjoy using. And then last, well, I guess not last, we have one more after this, but I have a Fude nib that I've been using on a Jinhao 82. So this is my Jinhao 82, which is a Pro Gear dupe. in olive with a Fude nib, and in it I have platinum carbon black. I am new to Fudes. I've sort of always used that brush pen that I showed earlier as my way of getting line variation, but this is something I want to play with more when drawing. So we'll see how that goes. And then last but not least, the pen we just inked up that I'm hoping will be ready to write is my, yes, Traveler's Factory brass pen in fine. I forgot they all come in fine. I kind of wish I could get an extra fine on this, but it doesn't seem worth getting ground. And I have in it Diamine Raspberry Rose. Oh, it's nice. I feel like I'm getting some good shading with this pen. This is, I find it to be a juicy writer. So this is my January lineup. I have my 7 pens as listed here. I have 1 pen, this Mont Blanc, for my 5-year Techo. We'll see if I like it. It might be too broad of a pen for that journal, but because of the Hobonichi grid, but maybe it won't be. I have these two here, pens with document ink that I'll use for drawing. I have my 2 everyday writers, which is my 2 sailors, and then 2 letter writing pens, which is going to be the green and the red. Oops, sorry, hit my mic there. So here, let's do a close-up. You want to see those colors. It does feel very autumnal, although, I mean, it's still cozy, so not inappropriate for winter, but also, let's be honest, these are my colors. So we'll see how I like it, and if I switch anything up before the end of the month, I'll probably do a follow-up video. I'll try to in February, so I can sort of maybe assess how this number of pens worked for me, and then pick my, at the very least, pick my pick my February color. I will probably tape this in just so I know that that was the one that I drew. Not that it really matters, but thank you so much. I'd love to hear sort of how do you determine sort of how you use your ink stash. Do you have a system for going through, or do you have like a set number of pens you like to have inked up every month? And if so, how did you come to that number? Like, how did you figure out like 10 is your sweet spot or 3? I'm really curious. I really like the idea of 3 pens inked up, but because I have some specific needs of like the art pens, I guess wouldn't count towards that. And then I do want to have a pen. If you think about it, I have sort of these 2 art pens and then a dedicated other pen. I really only have 4 inked up that I'm like using generally that doesn't have like a very specific use, which doesn't seem so bad to me. Or not bad, but overwhelming. Like I feel like I can use all of these pens and enjoy them over the course of a month or so, maybe 6 weeks. But thank you so much. This is longer than I intended. Hopefully I can edit it down a bit. Would love to hear what you think in the comments. Have a great day, and I hope your new year is off to a good start. Come by again, please, sometime. Bye.